All right, here we go. So I got told I needed to start a podcast like this one time because technically, if you listen to the Talking Schmidt podcast, you would have to be a Schmidt head, right? So here's to all you Schmidt heads out there. We got another one coming at you. Today I got Alex Phillips. I think we'll have a little conversation that he actually picked the topic on. Really enjoyed the idea of we're going to talk about growing up in the outdoors and kind of sort of how that's starting to fade away and it's really not becoming as popular as it once was. And yeah, it's kind of where we're going to hang around. So what's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole lot, man. I've just been, working, cutting digits off.
Yeah, we got a little 9-finger bandit going on over here.
Yeah, but other than that, just working. Went fishing yesterday. Just enjoying your podcast, man. I heard your first podcast with your sister, and then I've seen you've steadily been putting out regular podcasts. So me being the entrepreneur that I am, decided to come on the show.
Shoot, yeah. He's actually the first guy. He messaged me after, I think it was the second one I released with Mark and Casey on it. And all he said was, "Hey, man, really like the podcast, need to be on it." And I was like, "No, all righty, we can make that happen." And so I noticed doing a little Facebook snooping, because that's what Facebook's for. You're really big, especially now, into more or less like trout fishing, right?
Yeah, trout fishing is like the hardest fishing challenge around this area for me that I probably could pursue.
Yeah, I'm I don't even know what you would classify me as. I guess I'm like, I enjoy all types of fishing, and nothing beats a nice warm spring summer day where you're just sitting out there and enjoying the beautiful day, and then all of a sudden it turns dark and you're like, well, time to throw something stinky on the line and let's go catfishing. And I really enjoy, and I mean, me and my girlfriend have gotten big into creek fishing in the past year, and just going out more or less catching versus how big it is or whatever. And you'll be pleasantly surprised what you can find in a little creek, little river running around here.
Yeah, I know what you mean there, because growing up mostly I remember my grandpa would take me and my brother fishing at the old power dam. It used to be on Power Dam Road before he tore it down. And we fished there for 18 years. And you could catch catfish, bluegill, red eye, pretty much any fish except for a striper that the state of Virginia could offer you.
Yeah, I mean, my best fishing story, and this is a little disclaimer here. Both of us are fishermen. We're going to try not to lie, but but it might slip across. So this is for the listeners out there. But me and my girlfriend, we went fishing on Pig River, which is just off of Colonial Turnpike up here. That little bridge.
Yeah.
Dude, I was using a ultralight Walmart rod, 2-pound test on that bad boy, and no joke, we had pictures. The phone crashed. This is not a lie. I do have proof. I have other people that were with me. 7.5-pound blue cat. I pulled off a trout magnet in the middle of that river. That's probably one of the wildest things I've ever caught in a little creek.
Well, see, I can believe that, though, because like 2 years ago, I think, before they tore the power dam out, a guy on a canoe caught a 70-pound catfish out of the Pig River.
Golly.
And I was devastated when I seen this, because he would not release like remotely close to where he caught this fish on the Pig River canoeing. But that blew my mind, because for people that don't know how big a 70-pound catfish is, imagine like a 7-year-old child.
Yeah. Yeah, a healthy, so
yeah,
not
a fed right 7-year-old child.
Yeah, that's good. And like, it's not that big of water. Like,
no, not really. I mean, the deepest part of the pig probably is like 10 foot in the deepest section I could think of.
And I know floating at half the time, you got to drag your boat or your canoe or whatever. You got to drag it 75, 100 yards before you can hit water that's big enough to float on.
That's what I was thinking. So I was like, where is this guy catching a 70-pound catfish?
Well, I guess by the dam would be the best part for it, though.
I guess so, but I mean, it just blew my mind.
I mean, I've never caught anything on a kayak, but I've had one of my buddies, Jordan, Whitlow, he told me he put his in a pond and was catching little 2-pound bass and getting drug around his kayak.
That is true. I know Jordan. I'm actually really good friends with Jordan Whitlow. But kayak bass fishing or kayak fishing in general is some of the like funnest fishing I think I've ever did, especially on the James River.
Yeah.
Because we would go fish for like red-eye smallmouth on the James River, and that is just some of the most best fishing I think I've ever did in my entire life.
That a smallmouth was actually on my bucket list. Never caught a smallmouth.
Oh man!
And the more I hear about them, the more I'm like, I just need to pack up and go one day, and I need to put that on the resume.
Philpott is a good place to catch smallmouth.
Really?
Yeah, Philpott Lake has good smallmouth fishing. Really great walleye fishing if you have a boat. Philpott's one of those lakes where if you don't have a boat or a kayak, you're pretty much foobar the whole way. But other than that, I mean, walleye, some of the biggest walleye in the states come out of Philpott. Big giant smallmouth.
Me and the guy at work, we were talking about walleye fishing Philpott, and that's actually, I've never caught a walleye either, but my understanding of walleye fishing is when you go to fish for walleye, you have to fish for walleye.
Yeah.
It's not like you can go bluegill fishing and catch a bass and whatever else, a crappie or whatever. But like a walleye is a very pinpoint precision style of fishing.
Yeah, for me, walleyes are kind of like any other super predatory fish like brown trout and stuff like that. Walleye, I mean, they're a creature of habit. Nighttime, most time during the summer, nighttime fishing's really good. In early fall, around November, is pretty good walleye fishing. But I mean, jerk baits, moving baits, they're a predatory fish. They have giant teeth. They'll tear you apart, and they just like anything that looks tasty, pretty much.
I got you. Yeah, maybe we need to hit that up sometime this year.
Oh, for sure.
2020, I wanted to check off some fish off my list. I know. But what's one of the earliest memories you have of fishing? Just fishing in general.
Just fishing in general. I think probably I remember one of my birthdays. It was very common for my grandpa. Grandpa worked for a power line company his whole life, pretty much. He was always busy, and during the summer he would have usually one day off a weekend, which is when we would hound him like crazy to go fishing. And he always went. But I remember it was like my 6th or 7th birthday. Grandpa took us to Power Dam. I remember catfishing because we had just gotten brand new rods, me and my brother. And I laid mine down, and my brother stepped on it and broke it. First day I had it. That's my first fishing memory I can fully remember.
And for me, I was very fortunate. I grew up in my mom's house, and literally it was maybe 150, 200 yards through the woods was a pond, and it was our neighbors, and my dad was really good friends with the guy who owned it. So I remember me and Jordan, because he grew up right across the road from me, we used to load up dirt bikes, and we hounded this lady so much about fishing. She finally looked at us and said, "Don't ask anymore. I know what y'all drive. Just come down here and fish whenever you want to." And I don't think there was a day that went by in the summertime that we weren't down there blasting them. But one of the earliest memories I can think of is we were just go down there and you could catch monster bluegills. So, of course, little kid, you hook them up on a bluegill, that's the time of their life. Good fighting fish, fun, easy to catch. So we go digging through the tackle box. Me and my sister, my dad are down there. And we're sitting on the dock, and we find a crankbait. And I remember asking Dad what it was. I didn't know what a crankbait was. And he's like, it'll be good practice for you. Just go ahead and just tie it on the line and throw it out there a little bit. And my sister caught a bass off this crankbait. And later on, that was the coolest thing because we were used to worms or grasshoppers or, it was crazy to think that you can catch a fish on something that is not a food for them.
Yeah, it really is. Like some baits nowadays, like if you look at a spinner bait, it's essentially a bunch of cut up rubber bands taped to a weight with a giant spoon blade attached to it that just spins through the water. And that blows my mind that a fish is like, yeah, that's a bluegill or something. I need to eat that.
And there's some days like you would like looking at it, you'd be like, this wouldn't catch a fish. But I've had some days to where I couldn't throw it in the water and not pull in a fish on a spinnerbait. When they're on them, it's almost the only thing that you can catch them on.
Yeah, I know how it is. I mean, see, where I fish trout, bass, catfish, I fish pretty much the whole array of possibilities around here. So in the wintertime, I mean, it's hard if I'm off on weekend, it's very likely I will be on a trout stream somewhere. Smith River, Running Bag, Pig, Roanoke. I mean, we drive hours sometimes to go trout fishing. Because, I mean, it's a stocking game. You got to follow the stock trucks, find out where they go. But in the summertime, I mean, around here, you got to, in a way, if you don't have a boat, you have to know somebody that has a pond. You got to hope they'll let you fish that pond. And I'm stingy with my fishing spots.
Yep.
I tell people this all the time. I will not take some random person that I'm not good friends with to one of my fishing spots.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a good hunting spot, too.
Exactly.
If you're the one who's put in the work to go out there and stock this species, whatever, whether fish or wild game or anything, if you're the one who's put in the checklist of taking your time and finding where they are and the habits of them, and you find out what they like, it is extremely hard to give that up to somebody who hasn't put in the hours.
There's a pond over in Callaway, dynamite pond we used to fish when we were kids growing up. My grandpa used to always take us up there. Like, our whole family used to go up there fishing. Yeah. Guy owned it, and as he got older, his son took it over. And he would still kind of let people come up there from time to time. And then these guys kind of stole a car, and then they drove said car into the pond.
Ooh.
Because there was a real string of like car thefts in Callaway, like they were burning them at stoplights and stuff, well, stop signs, and just hoodlums. So they drove a car into this guy's pond, and this is such a nice, like, perfect bass pond. I mean, it's ideal fishing, giant dock. Well, he shut the operation down. He's like, nobody's ever coming up here ever again.
And that's one thing that has always irritated me is when somebody's nice enough to let you fish their land, because I mean that's their property. They have every right, like that guy did, to just shut it down, and you can't do nothing about it. It sucks, but it irritates me when you finally get the opportunity and you've earned the trust of the landowner, and then you go there and there's worm containers everywhere. There's line everywhere. There's old Mountain Dew bottles, and to me that's just it is super disrespectful for the person that has allowed you to be on their property to leave it like that. And I can't tell you how many times I walk in creek banks and pick up Walmart bags full of trash and throw it away just to try to leave it nicer than you came to it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I've always been the type, my grandpa's always, leave places like they were or better than they were when you showed up. And I mean, I smoke cigarettes, and even when I'm out like smoking on a creek or something, I still pocket like my cigarette butts just out of like force of habit, because I don't like throwing cigarette butts in the water. Fish come up and eat it, make a fish sick, the fish die. I want like to preserve as much fish as possible.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've learned about game wardens is like they're not the bad guy.
Yeah, that
now,
is
granted,
true.
some of them are out there to just like any other type of law enforcement. There's always a bad egg in the bunch somewhere. But if you get down and chance to talk to them, the reason that there's limits on catching fish is to make sure there's enough fish for next year and the year after, to make sure that the next generation has something to fish for. Because if you enjoy it, the next generation should enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, we go trout fishing, and there's days when you can bust out a limit in 5-10 minutes, and most time around here, we don't keep trout because we want to keep going back and catching them. So we'll release everything that's healthy and able enough to swim off, unless of course it's like a giant brown or something, and then we're taking that thing home. It has no chance of going back in the river.
Yeah, well, and if they weren't so delicious,
that is true.
It would be easier to put them back in the water.
That is true. Trout is like one of my favorite fish to eat. I mean, I don't really see the appeal in eating bass. I know people that eat bass, but
I haven't got that hungry yet.
I haven't either. Like, I mean, I'm picky about what type of fish I eat. Like, catfish, I'll eat
If and one
out
thing,
of certain bodies of water.
well, very true. And when a catfish hits an X amount of size, it doesn't taste as good as, like, to me, like a 2-pounder, perfect. That is because
Yeah,
when they get over like that 5-pound mark, they turn really muddy tasting and dirty almost.
Yeah, see, catfish are, it's one of those things like, I would never eat a catfish over 10 pound, I don't think. Because they start to get muddy tasting and kind of like super flaky after you cook them. Same thing kind of goes with trout. Like stock trout, they all taste the same. I mean, if you ever had like a wild stock trout, like from like a trout farm or something, you can definitely tell like the taste is different by what because they feed them for size. Like they grow these trout for like 10 years. That's why it costs, $60, $70 to go fish these places, which I mean, we do it all the time. Some of the best fun you could ever have if you're really into trout fishing. But the whole private stock thing, you're guaranteed you're going to catch big trout if you have a certain sense for what you're doing. But there's also something about, like, if you go to like a, say, Running Bag, one of my favorite places to fish, when they stock brown trout up there, brown trout are some of the most finicky, like, hard trout to catch. I contribute a lot of that, my knowledge, to my brother's trout fishing, because he's one of the best trout fishermen I know. But brown trout are so different from other trout. It really blows my mind, because if you look at like bass, like, there's different species of largemouth bass, but virtually they're all the same when it comes to like what they'll hit.
They got the same mindset.
They have the same mindset. Brown trout, I don't know what happened there, but they're just complete different predator.
Yeah, I've the past year, we started going down to the mouth of the Smith River, under the dam at Phillips.
I was down there yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, I was down there fishing yesterday.
And usually, like, for me, when you're bass fishing, you're playing the weather game. You're playing, the sky, the temperature, the water temperature. That's usually, you can get an idea of a ballpark of what they're going to bite. There's nothing more irritating to me than to be able to see 6 trout in this little hole and casting there 1,000 times, and they just watch it go by them. And you're changing lures, and you're throwing corn, you're throwing power bait, you're throwing everything you can. That is the most irritating thing for me about trout fishing.
Oh, I love it. Especially like the Smith. The Smith, just, in my opinion, if you're going to fish the lower Smith River, to successfully fish the lower Smith River, because there's wild browns in the Smith. The state record brown trout actually come out of the Smith in like 1980 something at like 28 pounds, like a ginormous trout. I think that's a fake record in my opinion, but that is like a ginormous, like, knee to bottom of the foot size trout, or bigger.
That is huge.
But brown trout, which is what they most of the time stock in the Smith, because they have a natural habitat living there anyways. I mean, they'll put some rainbows, but rainbow trout could be some of the most boring trout to catch in a way. I mean, sometimes they don't fight as good. They're always stockers, most of them are like fingerlings. They're 6 inches, barely stock limit. But I mean, I've seen trout, 5-6 pound trout, come out of a creek that you could probably stand in and not even get your socks wet in tennis shoes.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, there's actually a little creek that runs behind a couple houses down this way that used to stock. Everybody in the neighborhood, we'd all pitch money in, and then if you paid for it, you got a chance to fish it. And everybody we'd all get together, and it'd be a little camping adventure, and there might have been some adult beverages. I'm not going to say there was or there wasn't, but and we'd all go have a blast. And I'd always go a couple weeks after, let everybody kind of die off. And I know what you're talking about. I've caught a couple decent sized rainbows out of there that were stock fish, and small, like less than 3 foot of water, easy. And you're catching these fairly decent sized stock fish. But I also understand what you're saying is I've never caught a brown trout or anything. That's the extent of my trout fishing. And they weren't as exciting to catch as I was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, brown trout are sight fishing. Trout is painfully fun in a way, and to explain on that is more of like you said, I've had times where you can go up to like a hole and sneak up on a hole, water's crystal clear, and there's 20, 30 trout in this hole, and you're like, bingo, you know, it's guaranteed fun.
Yep.
And you could throw everything except for a throw net in there and won't catch a thing.
Yep.
Until one little change in the sun direction or anything will set trout off. If you can get one trout to bite 90% of the time, the rest of them instantly are, hey, it's feeding time, I need to eat. But for example, did you ever see that last brown I posted on Facebook? Yeah. Posted that brown on Facebook. Me and my buddy Justin, we fished there for probably 20 minutes. I mean, they wouldn't bite anything. And I knew these fish were in this hole because we walked a little off the road and found them the day before, and they wouldn't hit the day before. I said, oh, they'll be here tomorrow for sure unless somebody comes up here and snags them or something, which is a horrible problem in the state of Virginia. Game wardens need to crack down on that. But we went back, and I mean, I kept throwing everything on these fish, and eventually, you know, you have to have a certain drifts for some reason. A bait can come by a fish the same height, same speed, but if you bring it in from like a different angle, like across a different rock or something, for some reason it'll just set a fish off, and it blows my mind.
That's
every time.
That's crazy.
It blows my mind.
And people always, you know, like anybody who's ever had a pet fish, they're not necessarily the smartest, and then you get them in the wild, and it's like it's a whole new ball game of sitting here trying to figure these things out. And I think that plays into like deer hunting as well. It's a chess game, man.
It really is.
You've got to be a lot of it. I will credit some to luck. There's some because might have just been the luck of the draw that you tied that right lure on and you ended up catching them. Or it might be the luck of the draw that you decided to go, instead of this deer stand, you walked down 100 yards and sat on the ground, and then you ran into deer. But it's such a... I'm a big bow hunter. And you into bow hunting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if anybody who's into hunting, if you have never... I got Jordan hooked on it. Yeah, he's like, I don't even want to pick up. I let him use one of the bows I had. And I was like, yeah, here you go. And he said, dude, I ain't even touched my rifle all year. He said, I ain't even seen a deer, but I want to just... It's cool to kill a deer or harvest a deer 100-plus yards. Deer never knew you were there, and it's just for them. But there's something else about having a deer 20 to 30 yards away from you, knowing that if you make the wrong movement, the game is over.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And my thing is, I love knowing the fact that I walked into that territory of the deers and I put a clean shot on him. He didn't have to suffer, and he never knew I was there. But yet again, I was 30 yards away from him, and this deer never knew what hit him. That's what entices me so much about bow hunting.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I grew up around gun hunters. Like, my family was always... During muzzleloader and rifle season, like 90% of the men in my family would leave for 2 months almost, and they would never come back. I would never see them. They were always gone, and we had a hunting bus that we had converted, like the most redneck thing, camouflage painted hunting bus with a stove and bunk beds. I mean, it was
That's
cool.
What I'm talking
it was
about.
legit. But they would stay gone and hunt down in Pennsylvania County. And that's what I grew up knowing, you know, that this time of the year is hunting season. So I've always knew that. And when I started hunting, you know, I started hunting with a 20-gauge bolt action, you know, shooting slugs. Yeah. And when I broke into bow hunting, it was more of a, dang, now, you know, I got to get super close to these deer. Wind started being, like, a much more of a factor and slight movements. But, like, I could shoot a doe with a gun, and it's just like another day in the woods. I shoot a doe with a bow.
It's a trophy.
I'm tickled to death.
It's a trophy
every time. I think like 90% of it too is like the schwack sound when you shoot a deer with a bow. It is indistinguishable. Sounds like you're just punching meat, and it is glorious.
And dude, the best way I can describe it is it's a drug.
It really is.
It is. you don't even have to be able to harvest one or to shoot one. If you're just out there and a deer comes up on you, able enough to where you can successfully draw down on them, then all of a sudden, dude, I've never shook so much in my life.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I remember it was actually me and my buddy Scott. We were hunting. It was the first deer I ever killed with a bow, and we were down on my mom's land, and he's maybe 75 yards across the woods from me, and we're texting and communicating with each other because this is the high tech hunting era. So we're talking, and I looked down and my phone's ringing, and I was like, "What is this guy doing calling me?" I pick it up and I'm like, "Yeah," I'm whispering. He's like, I just stuck a doe. And I was like, "Oh, hang on, I see one." He goes, "No, that's the one I hit." And I was like, "Okay." He said, "Watch her." I was like, "Okay." So I hung up the phone. He messaged me back and he said, "So what do we do now?" And I said, "Hey, how about you call me one in? Like, I'm taking you on my land and you're going to be the one who shoots a deer. That's kind of wrong for me." And I said, "Well, anyways, we need to let her go ahead and lay down. So let's not jump her up." He said, "All right, cool." So he hits the grunt call a couple more times. This doe come in. She might have been 100 pounds, maybe. Little itty bitty yearling. And I said, if she walks through this spot, it's game over. And I put a good shot on her, and he calls me back. He goes, "Hey, yeah, we don't have to worry about your deer." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "She fell down in front of my deer stand." He's like, "She's 20 foot away from me right now." And I was like, awesome. We never found his deer, but this little itty bitty 100-pound doe that I picked up by myself and put in the back of the truck, that's how small his deer was the biggest trophy I've ever killed in my life. Until I actually got a chance to harvest a really good buck off of one. But it's a drug. I shot one, or the same deer, and I calmed down enough. Me and him started talking. I started telling the story again. Immediately, the adrenaline hit me again, and I started shaking, and I was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that, like, hunting is a drug, and fishing goes the same way. I mean,
I think it goes back to that chess game. When you finally figure out how to beat it, there's no greater feeling in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's like some of the biggest accomplishments that I contribute to my life are fishing and hunting related. And it's really crazy, like, to tell people don't understand, like, if you catch like over a 5-pound bass, how like excited you can get, like, once you see the fish like come up out of the water, or you get a glimpse of it. Like, it completely changes your whole mindset. And hunting's the same way. I mean, I get shook to death driving down the road at night and seeing a big buck standing in the field.
Yep.
I'm like, good Lord, that's a hammer. And like, you're like stopping, like looking, and other people are stopping and looking.
That's one thing I could contribute to growing up in the boonies, as some people would claim, in the middle of nowhere. And I actually got a chance in 2017. I harvested a very, very nice buck in the middle of rifle season with a bow. And I took it down to go get it checked in, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good deer, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, I killed it with a bow." And everybody's demeanor changed for it, and they're like, "Dude, you don't understand how good of a deer that is now." It's cool to know that I've never been put down by another hunter.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that really do that. I mean, I see a lot of it on like the Facebook pages. Like, people will, new to hunting in like their late 20s and 30s, because I mean, some people didn't grow up with grandfathers and fathers that were into hunting that could take them hunting. I have a lot of buddies that I've like introduced to like squirrel hunting and bass fishing that now thoroughly enjoy it.
And that's actually where I got my start hunting. Was dude, I probably didn't start actually deer hunting till I was probably 15 or 16. Like, and so for some people, especially in this area, that's kind of late in the game for some people, because they're 5 years old and got a gun in their hands out there trying to be like their dad.
Yeah, I mean, I know how that is. I mean, growing up, my brother, I started hunting, I say, when I was about 14, like actually hunting, but I was always like the fishing guy. Like bass fishing, I have more ponds than the Great Lakes has lakes. Like, I have so many bass ponds, it's unreal. But my brother was always the hunter, which drew more to like my dad and a couple of my uncles, and I was like the fisher, which drew to my grandpa, because my grandpa was taught me everything probably there was about fishing. Tying knots. I could tie like 20 fishing knots for no reason. I only tie one now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just know so much, and a lot of that contributes to like trout fishing. Because I remember when we first started trout fishing in Franklin County. I was probably in 6th or 7th grade. My grandpa always went, and he started taking me and my brother. And then it kind of become a problem because when trout season would come in, they would stop when we were in school. And then my grandpa and my dad would check us out of school to take us trout fishing.
I mean, you gotta
once
have
a week.
sick day every now and then.
Yeah, but like once a week. And like I remember like the school was like, why does your father keep checking you out? When I was in like high school too, and I was like, oh, I'm going trout fishing, that's why. And they were like, that ain't good. I was like, it's good for me, not for y'all. But I mean, we would always go on the Pig and like a couple secret spots on the Pig for undisclosed times to tell you. But I mean, we would always go, and I remember the first trout I ever caught with my grandpa. It was one of those like he hooked it, I reeled it in deals.
Yep.
Because my brother was like wearing them out. My brother's 3 years older than me, and I remember I was pissed off. But my brother was wearing them out, and then my grandpa taught me the whole like drift fishing game. Because usually bass, you can throw almost right on top of a bass sometimes, and it'll trigger them, it'll set them off, they'll eat it. Trout, you have to work it into them or pull it by them. If you cast right on top of a trout, you might as well have shot them with a gun because they take off everywhere.
Yes.
So that's more of when I started learning to drift fish. But I mean, it just really does shock me, like the amount of people that you can talk to nowadays that are like teenagers that have never went fishing, never went hunting, like couldn't tell you how to load a gun or safely unload a gun.
Yeah,
like,
and I'm not trying to get into like the politics too much, but like growing up, gun safety was top of the list for everything. I grew up with guns in the house. I grew up in guns with the house without a safe. Like, we didn't have them locked and stowed away, but I knew if I touched that gun that it was loaded. Even if it wasn't loaded, my dad pushed it into my head that you treat that gun like it's loaded. You don't point it at anybody. You don't point at anything you don't intend on pulling the trigger on. And one of the biggest things he always told me is we were outside plunking with 22s, and he said, just remember, when you squeeze that trigger, you can control everything till that point. He said, when the hammer falls and that bullet flies out, you cannot take it back. And you always, and that's something that's always stuck me. Even shooting bows, it's when it releases, when that thing goes downhill, you can't take that back anymore.
Yeah, and bows are, with a gun, I mean, bow safety is like a lot more complicated in a way than gun safety, because
there's a lot more maintenance with a bow.
If you pull back a 70-pound bow, because most draw weights for big boys are 60, 70 pounds. You pull back 70 pounds on an older model bow and lock it in, you get tired quick.
Very.
And when there comes an issue you have to let that bow back down without it going off, I've seen people like slam it forward and launch an arrow.
Mm-hmm.
It may go 10 foot, but you still launch that arrow 10 foot. It
still went out there. And I mean, if something was in front of you during that, it's...
I mean, for me, I've always said, if it comes down to that, I'm just going to aim into the ground right in front of me, because I know where that arrow is going in the ground, and I'll just let it rip.
And just eat the cost of the arrow, and you're done with it.
But, I mean, gun safety, I think almost all of my friends, I could probably be like, hey, check this gun out. I'm the same way. Hand it to them, and they're instantly going to drop the clip and pull back the slide and see if it's loaded. Or they're going to unbolt, peek in, see if there's a shell in it.
Yeah.
And even rack the shell. I'm like, I'll rack the shell out in my hand.
Yeah, I've done that. But like you said, it's crazy to think that, me and you were around about the same age, but just I'd say 5 to 8 years younger than us, probably early 20s, I wouldn't even say early 20s. I'd say late teenage years, 16, 17.
I would say early 20s too. It's really declining.
Yeah, and I don't understand why. I'm the type of guy too that if I have something that I enjoy, I want everybody to enjoy it. I'm the same way.
I don't like to push things on people,
Yeah.
but I feel like you should never be against trying something.
Yeah.
I can understand, if you have a massive love for animals and you don't want to see an animal get hurt or anything like that. That's understandable, but you still shouldn't like bash somebody.
This is something that blew my mind that somebody told me, and talking about as far as like animals go and hunting goes, and somebody said that other people were having a discussion. I was listening in on it, and somebody said, "I don't understand how you can hurt an animal like that." And the guy broke it down, and he said, "Do you know how animals die in the wild?" He's like, "Have you ever seen a grizzly bear eat anything? A grizzly bear,
it's gory.
It eats it alive.
Yeah.
This animal suffers so much more because, like, animals, as bad as it sounds, they don't lay down and just die. 90% of them don't. When they get old enough, they get preyed upon because they're not as fast, they're not as agile. So that's when the coyotes take them over. That's when, if you go out west, that's when wolves, bobcats, mountain lions,
disease,
anything. And a lot of times when a hunter who actually is a respectful hunter, that when that animal goes down, every bit of that animal is taken care of. From, I mean, dude, I can't tell you how much meat you can get out of a deer. And it's all delicious, one. But in the wild, it isn't as nice as just shooting it and it falls down and dies. It gets literally torn apart alive.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen deer in the wild that have been hit by cars and stuff, and they're like limping through the woods with half a leg on the front, or their back legs are broken, just dragging through the woods. And I mean, it's all. I feel like every hunter should take a tag at that point and be like, let me put this thing out of their misery. And even sometimes, if say you don't have any more doe tags, if you see a doe like that, really injured, sickly looking, with all the disease in Franklin County, you can actually call a game warden, and a game warden will be like, go ahead and take it down, and then we'll come, look at it and everything.
Yep. And there's been a couple of them that I've seen on a couple Facebook pages I'm a part of, to where a guy has killed a deer and it was infected and he didn't know it. The game wardens actually came and checked the animal and researched on it and gave him another tag because he did call it in, and now they understand that he told them where he killed it at and harvested it, but the game warden come in and now they are trying to help prevent that disease from going into more areas.
Yeah, I mean, the chronic wasting disease, CWD, and blue tongue and all that we got going on now, like, you can definitely tell just by a couple years ago driving down the road at night. Dodging deer was a game.
Yep.
Driving down the road.
It was the professional level of fraud.
Yeah, if you didn't know, like, the back roads in this county, like where fields were, because I can tell you pretty much anywhere on my way home from this place where I will see a deer at night. Almost guaranteed. I'd probably bet my left testicle I will see a deer. But I mean, you're gonna, the spots, just like hunting and fishing. Once you fish ponds for a long time, this time of year there's gonna be bass in this spot.
Yep.
But over the last, this past year, I have a spot up the road from my house every night, year round. You would see deer there. We haven't seen a single deer there all year. Haven't seen any deer movement. But we'll start seeing deer movement in weird, highly public places now.
Yep.
That's I've seen one of the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life right beside Sheets in town, the gas station.
Yeah. Right across the road from that where the pool is.
Yeah.
I was driving down the road and I seen a black bear, full-grown black bear, sitting on the corner of 40 watching traffic go by.
Yeah, it's crazy. These animals nowadays, I don't know what's going on, but I've seen the biggest deer in the most public places, and they just look confused.
Well, that too, but I think a lot of it too is that there's no pressure on them, so they don't have to worry as much because they understand that they're not as likely to get hunting pressure put on them.
That is true.
And that too, and the big thing about bears and stuff is, we're slowly taking over their environment. They got to figure out a place to go. And a lot of times that's where you get these bears and coyotes and stuff going into small towns, is because
walking into people's hospitals and stuff.
There's a desk at the hospital for years that still had the bear claws on it. Oh, just for the people who has never grown up around here. How many years ago was that?
That was probably 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
And there was actually a black bear walked into the emergency department in the Frayne County Hospital. Like the Rocky Mount ED literally walked in there and was inside of an office, I believe.
Yeah, they trapped it in an office like a 300-pound black bear.
And my grandpa, who lived in Minnesota, we were telling him the story, and he said it could probably, because at that time there was still a nursery in Rocky Mount, and he said he believes that he could probably smell the newborn babies. And
that is creepy.
Dude, scary.
It's okay. I'm just here to eat your children.
Exactly. But like that's probably the reason that he made an effort to get inside of there.
Could be. I mean, I remember because Riley Hodges just run for sheriff. He was the one that shot the bear. But they had this thing trapped. Can you imagine being in the hospital in the waiting room for like a foot injury or something? You're in a wheelchair.
You got a broke leg.
Like a broke leg. And you just look up and here's a 300-pound black bear just like cruising. Standing in line, like
man,
just sitting there. Because if you go to the ER fair, there's one way in, one way out.
Yep.
Because at night they lock the other doors in the hospital for safety reasons, I'm sure. But where are you gonna go? Especially if you're in a wheelchair,
dude.
Do you charge it? Like,
just get a battering ram, start wheeling into this. I would have
start throwing chairs at it or something.
I
push a kid down, something.
Yeah, I was going to say, as much of a manly man as I would love to be and be like, you know what I'd have done?
I would have wrestled him.
Yeah, I'd have stood up, looked at bear, and was like, nah, I'd have been the first one out there. You ever seen a fat kid run? I'd have been juking and diving.
Everybody behind.
Dude, y'all could have put me on an NFL field and I'd have scored a touchdown that day.
It's like the old saying, you ain't got to outrun the bear, you got to outrun one of your friends.
Yeah, don't be the slowest guy.
Yeah,
that's
don't
the
be
key.
the slowest guy. I'm sure a 5-year-old isn't going to outrun me when I punch him in the head. Like, that bear's eating somebody. It ain't me.
It ain't me today.
I'm going to be on the news at 7 a.m. telling my life story about this bear attack.
Yeah, that was our big rule on four-wheelers. If we were crossing some land or something that we were nervous about, it was, you ain't got to be the fastest four-wheeler. Just don't be the slowest. Because the slowest, the guy in the back of the pack is usually the one to get caught.
Yeah. And that's when you got to hope that your friends won't tell on you or tell everyone else that was involved in that charade.
You got to trust the guy with the slowest equipment.
That's like, I'll never forget, like, parties when I was in high school. And there was always, like, the 20 people when a party got busted that would stay and talk to the cops. And then there was good-hearted Christian boys like me that would take off running in the woods.
Yeah.
And hide for hours on end in the cold.
And from my experience, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, these are all allegedly.
Alleged stories.
You know, I wasn't necessarily afraid of the cops as much as my mom.
Oh, God, yeah. My mom is a terrifying woman when she's mad.
My mom always told me, she's like, if you ever get in trouble and you're arrested, call me. And I said, okay, you're going to get me out. She goes, oh, no, I just want to know where you're at.
I just want to know.
She's like, you're going to stay there.
Yes.
I was like, oh,
see,
thanks.
My parents, like, my mom was the punishment giver. My mom had no issues whipping us. My dad would whip us, but it would break his heart. And my dad's like ex-con manly man. Like, it would break my dad's heart to whip his kids. But my mom gave no shits. My mom we would be begging my mom, like, come on, Mom, please don't. And like, my brother would be laughing. And I'd like get whipped. We got whipped with a paddle, like an actual wooden paddle.
You know what we grew up with? A wooden spoon.
Wooden spoons. Oh, they used to make me so mad because my mom would whip you with a wooden spoon that gave out like 200 whoopings in its lifetime. And when the day that wooden spoon breaks, she gets mad and go grabs a plastic one.
No, okay. So this is a great story on my mom, and she had this fancy, I think it was bamboo wooden spoon. And this was one of the times that I wasn't getting a whooping. My middle sister, Kyla, was. And she went to go make the statement to, bring the fear of God in you. So she smacked it on the counter. When she smacked it on the counter, it broke the head of it off.
Oh, God.
And it went flying. And you talking about hearing a pin drop in that house. I think everybody went silent. And then
what's she going to grab next?
Dude, it wasn't even that because it was her favorite spoon. So she was mad too.
Oh, God.
And all she did was she looked up at Kyla and said, you need to go to your room. And I think I even went in my room. I wasn't even in trouble.
Yeah,
but I was just,
I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, it was time to get out of Dodge.
Yeah, see, I remember like the worst moments as a kid was Like when your parents left you and like your sibling alone or your siblings, and you broke something that you weren't supposed to break, and then you're like,
you probably shouldn't have been messing with it in the first place.
Like
that
was probably like I remember me and my brother put a hole in the wall one time when he was on crutches because I pushed him over. And it was right beside like the entrance to the living room, like the doorway to the living room. And I was like, "Oh, Mom's gonna kill you." And he was like, "Well, you pushed me." I was like, "I'm gonna say I wasn't here." And it was a nightmare. Like we were trying to like talk about moving picture frames like down to like knee level to like block this hole. And eventually we just didn't say anything about it. And it made it like a solid 2 weeks before my mom noticed it. And then we just told her that my brother tripped. Just terrifying.
No, what talking about moving picture frames, dude? I was at a party one time, and like there was adult beverages there, and we were in this trailer, and this guy just got this idea. It wasn't even his house. He said, "I think I can punch through that wall."
I've had parties like that.
Dude, this is so he gets in touch with the person's house. It was actually wasn't their house. It was their parents' house. And they're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." He's like, "Really?" Okay, so he punched through both sides of drywall and ended up in the closet of the next room.
Glorious.
So,
glorious.
Yet again, our quick thinking idea was your quick thinking idea. We bought a picture, a random picture we found at Walmart, hung it up there. It lasted 3 months until the lady's mom was actually looking in the closet for something and found the other hole.
Seen the hole. I remember me and one of my buddies, we were kind of celebrities at parties around here for a long time because we were known for the guys who were going to show up. There was like a 60% chance me and him were going to like start a massive fight with somebody. And there was also a high chance that we were going to destroy your property. Like your house, like beer pong tables had no chance, allegedly. Like we were doing front flips, suplexing each other through them. I watched
match.
I watched Kenny Dial one time. Love this guy to death, Kenny. If you're out there, I love you, man. But I watched him do a swanton bomb wrestling move front flip off of a camper through a door that we were using as a beer pong table. Immediately stand up, hit the DX suck it, fall backwards 20 foot down a hill.
That's glorious.
Best night of my life.
I was fixing to say, that's when legends are made.
Best night of my life. Cops showed up like 20 minutes later, 80 kids hiding. 2 guys picked up a beer keg and ran with it through the woods. You could hear it hitting trees, everything. And the funny part was, everybody allegedly ran and hid like 30 foot into the woods, because cops at the time, cops aren't going to follow you in the woods in Henry County.
They got bigger problems.
Yeah, they got bigger problems, like the 20 kids that stayed behind like losers.
Exactly.
And they were like, "Come out, it'll be okay, we'll just call your parents." And like you'd hear somebody's like, "No, my mom's terrifying, I ain't coming out. You're crazy." And then like you'd hear like this keg, like 5 minutes later, like this keg banging on trees, like they're still moving it, and the cops are like, "Hey, stop!" And you'd hear the keg quiet down, and then you'd hear like a like someone opening a Bud Light can somewhere. But I mean, and it's crazy for me because like the wildest people I knew back then are like the most civilized, like hardworking people with families now.
I think you burn it out, man.
Like
I think you burn the wild hairs off.
I do too, because like I look at like the shelter. I'd say the not really sheltered kids, but the kids that never really partied in high school or even after high school. Now they're like in their like later 20s, and they're like raging alcoholics or on meth, sadly.
Yeah,
and they're like horrible people, like delinquents.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like the good, straight A, quiet students. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what
But
you mean,
I have no clue. Like, it's weird how much that changes. Like, people change.
Oh, yeah, dude. There's a bunch of people, and I can name off 2 or 3 people, and I've had these conversations with them of, dude, back in, like, I was homeschooled, so, but I still grew up in the parking lot. So I grew up in the high school environment. And I would tell people, I'm like, dude, back in high school, like, I couldn't stand to be around you. And one kid, his name is Zach Blankenship. You know what I'm talking about? I worked with him for a little bit, and he said the truest statement I've ever heard in my life. He says sometimes it takes a little longer for people to pull their head out of their ass.
That is true.
And I said, dude, you're 100% right on that.
I'm still pulling.
Yeah, I'm still trying too.
Still pulling.
But and like you said, some of these people that would they just irk your nerves, and now they're super nice people. So I mean, and sometimes you just got to give people a second chance on on a friendship sometimes.
And I mean, nowadays, like, I try to I'm open to making new friends. I like a large amount of people in this county. I think a large amount of people like me.
Yeah.
I'm not pretty sure sometimes, but that's just my history. But a lot of today is, for me, trusting people is hard. Especially, we have so many road-ups right up the road. There's murders every night, shootings. Even here now, like, people's houses get broke into, shootings. We just had a guy kill his father not long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know what people will do for money nowadays.
You're 100% right.
And that's a scary thing.
I think I do the weirdest thing ever for money is I wake up really early in the mornings and I go punch in, and I work 12 hours. And sometimes it's hard for people to imagine that I have to do that for money, but I do it 5 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know what you mean, because I mean, looking at it, I probably, I had good enough grades. I probably could have went to college and everything, but I mean, it was just a natural thing for, especially in my family stuff, when you graduate high school, you get a full-time job somewhere.
Yep,
like,
make money.
Start working, go make money. And I mean, my grandpa worked in the coal mines. My dad, until he got disabled, he worked in the coal mines. And I mean, it's always like hard work pays off. I mean, my mom's worked the same job for 20, I think right at like 20 years. And she went from the base ground level job to she's the director of the company now.
That's awesome.
Very tippy top. And I mean, I'm inspired to like be like that. I want to work somewhere to go to the top. But around here, I mean, it's kind of hard to find a place like that.
Oh yeah, and
I mean, unless you have a degree, it's pretty much you're gonna be driving a forklift or something.
And there's some people I know, very, very intelligent people that went to college. I know very, very intelligent people that didn't. And some people I have worked with, and I don't understand how they got a college degree.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Common sense is such a far concept now. It's hard to wrap my mind around that people don't understand that, if you stick a fork in an electrical socket, it will shock you.
Yeah.
Like, there shouldn't be a warning label for that.
If there was a common sense Olympics,
America
would struggle.
Ooh, yeah,
America would struggle.
Yeah.
We might get a bronze medal if you send the rednecks. We might survive.
Raise hell, praise Dale.
Yeah, but I mean, I know what you mean. Like hot, don't touch. It's like when you tell like a 3-year-old, like, hey, it's hot, it's gonna burn you. You got to tell adults now, like, hey, that coffee's hot. Just come out of that pot.
Yeah, the stuff you got to blow on before you drink it.
Yeah,
you steam coming off
that. It ain't cold.
Going back around, not trying to end this topic, but going back around, a question I want to ask you about fishing. Yet again, you're the trout fisherman. A tempty. I wouldn't even classify myself as a fisherman for it. You tried fly fishing?
Oh, fly fishing. My brother got me to fly fishing. Fly fishing for wild trout, natives. They call them natives. They're trout that haven't been stocked. They've been hatched in that creek, lived there their whole lifespan. Beautiful little trout. Some of the hardest fish to catch. I don't care if you're one of the best bass fishermen in the world, get paid to do it. I can take you to a native trout stream with a fly rod, and I will laugh at you struggle all day long when I catch fish.
And this tells you my extent of I went to sporting goods store, and I the older I get, the more I understand too about buying better equipment.
Yeah.
The better equipment. We were talking about that with music earlier. Better equipment makes you better. So of course I bought the cheapest fly rod I could find.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. And but my accomplishments of catching a fish on that was about it's maybe about a 9-inch largemouth bass I caught out of a pond. But that was an exciting fight to have this little itty bitty bass. He ate my fly, and I said I can't imagine hooking into, like you were talking about, a 5-pound brown trout and just letting that bad boy run.
Oh, see, you hooking a 5-pound, 6-pound trout on a spinning reel with like heavy tackle. It's a fight. Fly rods, I mean, bass fishing for fly rods in ponds, like, cause you can use a fly rod and not use a fly. Like I've fly fished with a bass rod and fished a Senko on it. Yep. Like, just the feeling of a fly rod with like a power bait on and a trout stream. You watch the line, just like the setups and the hook sets. Everything just feels so much more natural. With you have all that rod in your hand, waist deep in frigid cold water with waders on. Like, if you slipped, you could probably die. Like, trout swimming up around your legs. Like, it's just a whole nother ballpark of fishing, and that's what I think really makes people like a step above your average hunter or fisherman. You know, there's weekend warriors is a good way to describe it. Hunters that go out and just walk into the woods and sit down in one spot and hope they see something. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to get outside. But in my opinion, if you fully want to enjoy something, you have to take it to the max.
Okay.
You have to get like the full experience out of it. I mean, like, I've fished places in Bath County, go up there, and it was 60 degrees, sunshine, get out in waders, and it's perfect weather. It's a picnic. And then I've went, excuse my language, a place called Schitt's Creek in West Virginia. Go up there. We went up there one year. It was 56 degrees down here, I think. When we got up to West Virginia, it was -7.
Ooh.
It was snowing, and there was like 8 inches of snow on the ground, and only thing I had was blue jeans, a hoodie, and a pair of chest waders to wear. And so I was wading in water that was waist deep in -7 degrees. My thighs were like freezing together. No joke, like my legs were freezing together. It was so cold in the water. And I fished like that for like 14 hours that day with no gloves or nothing, and it absolutely sucked. But the fishing was so great that you didn't even notice how cold you were.
Somebody said too, like, there's different types of fun. Like, you got what they call like fast fun. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like, woo, and it's exciting and it's fun. But the memories of fun that you have are usually the ones that are, you got to grind through it. They're not the best environment to be in.
Yeah.
Like, those are the memories that you'll hold forever. Like, I'm sure you'll tell that story when you're 80 about going in that cold water, your legs freezing together, but you were catching fish.
Yeah, it was a miserable time.
But looking back, you had a great time doing it.
Yeah, it was like, that's the whole rewarding aspect. That's why, like, I appreciate hunters out west. If you've ever went hunting like around here or anything, most average hunters, you can walk to your stand in like 10 to 20 minutes from where you park. It ain't that bad. You climb up in your stand. If you get tired, you just walk back out or something. Guys out west that do like big elk hunts, big muley hunts, stuff like that, mule deer, they walk up mountains like because those are herd animals. They constantly travel.
The spot and stalks.
The spot and stalks. And like Steve Vernelli and those guys, like, that just blows my mind sometimes, because I've seen videos and stuff, where they walk into a spot and it'll happen immediately. You're quick. Like, animals there, and then they're gone like ghosts. Yep. And you would be surprised how quickly a 1,000-pound elk can disappear in front of you.
Yeah. That's actually one of my goals. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. It's going to happen sometime soon. Is I want to backpack bow hunt somewhere. I want to actually backpack, put everything in a backpack, go out into somewhere deep, whether it's in like Endicott or up in like the deep part of Callaway next to Floyd, and find like a good chunk of land that somebody would let me hunt and walk, a couple miles in the woods, set up a camp, and then that's where you hunt out of for the next couple of days. For some reason, that has enticed me so much, and I physically I know I'm not ready for that yet either because I do not have the conditioning for it.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of work because you think like the deeper you hike in, I mean I know people, my brother especially. For my brother's kind of a heavy set guy. I've seen my brother and looked at his hunt stand map of him like hiking to carrying in a ladder stand or a climber stand on his back. He'll hike like 3-4 miles easy in the morning, climb up a tree, sit there all day, and then pack a stand and a deer out.
Dang.
Like and he won't complain a bit like it's nothing. But in a lot of places get hunted heavy, you have to go places where other people won't go.
And like for me, where I hunt, literally in my stand, I can hear 220. Like I can hear cars go by. I can hear VDOT is right up the road from me, so I can hear their big trucks start up. I can hear people yelling sometimes. And when you get that far into the woods, those deer don't hear cars every day. They don't, and I think it would be a lot harder to hunt them.
Oh yeah,
dude, yet again, it's just one of those challenge things that it's been on my list that I need to check off sometime here soon.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I had a hunting spot in town, like in town limits, like a little hay field in the middle of town. We built like a little blind, put some hay bales around it and stuff, and you could see road almost all the way around you. You had big like townhouses, but like 20 yards from our blind. Like people knew we were in our blind. Like we'd wave at them as we walked in. So like they knew like, hey, those guys are hunting. Like they wouldn't like let their dog outside or something because like that's just common respect in this county. I'm pretty sure. But we used to slam does every day. Like, we could go over there and we guaranteed would see 80 does in town limits. We actually was hunting over there one time. A cop seen us walking in, didn't know who we were. He jumped deer. That's how close to the road we were. He walked over to the blind. He's like, "What are you doing? What does it look like we're doing? You know?
Yeah,
We're sightseeing out here.
Bird watching.
Bird watching. Well, I mean, some of the most like I said before, some of the most public places will have like the craziest deer activity, and then some of the most remote places that probably haven't seen a human footstep in 200 years won't have a single animal in it.
Yep.
And it blows my mind.
Well, that too, but I think a lot of it is like within the town, they're used to the noise. They're used to people. They're used to that going on. Well, when you walk deep in the woods and you break a stick different,
somebody's here.
It's not just that, man. They're used to getting so much pressure from coyotes and everything else. Yeah. So when they hear that noise, it's
panic.
Yep. So they could, and like you said, 1,000-pound elk hiding from you in plain sight. Can you imagine what a 200-pound deer is? A monster. That is a giant big deer. And
deer are extremely quiet animals too.
Oh, dude.
Squirrels, loudest animal in the woods.
Oh my gosh, it sounds. One of them, I swear, had a leaf blower this year in the woods. I don't know what he was doing.
Squirrels sound like a freight train coming through the woods. It don't make no sense.
I was sitting. I bought a little box blind from. I think it was Tractor Supply. They were having a sale on one little 2-man pop-up blind.
Yeah.
Well, I got it set up next to a tree, and I heard the squirrel climbing up above me. Well, if you've ever sat in a blind, that's the worst part about a blind is that it's very low visibility.
Yeah, you can't see
much.
A whole lot.
But it also is nice because they can't see in, so it's easier to open up the snack bag. It's easier to you've got
in your boxers when it's 80 degrees out.
Yeah, we were actually talking about the last day of deer season making some margaritas and going out there because it was 70 degrees. But I had a squirrel. I swear, you talking about that swanton bomb earlier? Yeah. He did something to the top of my blind. It actually buckled one of the legs in. And I literally about pooped my pants in the middle of the woods. Because of a 2-pound, 3-pound squirrel, maybe. I don't know what he was. I don't know if he dropped a bowling ball on
attack.
Dude, I don't know what he did, but it moved my whole blind.
He probably thought it was another tree, honestly, with a camel on top.
Probably.
It could have been. But, I mean,
I wish I had seen it from the outside, though.
The scariest moment of my life ever hunting in a ground blind. True story. Me and my buddy was hunting in Callaway. I thought we were getting attacked by a black bear. I never have screamed so much in my life. But usually deer are notorious for being super quiet animals. And we've had some hilarious moments in a ground blind, me and my buddy together. We've picked one up and run it across the field. like in like a cartoons, like you know what I mean, like where they're hiding in like a bush and they lift the bush and run.
Yeah,
we've did that and gained ground on a deer before. It'll confuse the hell out of a deer. Well, we were sitting in a blind one day because we just take it and pop it up wherever we think the deer are going to come out that day, and we put it right against this thicket. And apparently, we had blocked like a deer trail that we did not know a deer was using. And we sat there for probably 2 hours, and there was this obnoxious rustling sound coming from the back of the blind. And we had one of the ones where the back, you couldn't see out of. It was just a whole flat back. And I was like, something big is coming through the woods. I was like, it's either a bear or the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. And eventually, like, you could hear it picking up speed like something was chasing it. And I heard a dog barking, so I was like, a dog's running a bear towards us. I said,
that's a worst case scenario.
This 200, probably 180-pound deer runs flat into the back of our deer blind, knocks me over, like guns go everywhere. I'm like screaming, like trying to get out of this blind. I'm like, it's a bear, like screaming, like yelling, trying to scare this bear away. And like I peek my head out like from up under the blind that's fell over, and it's like a 150-pound doe just running through the field. And I felt so embarrassed.
Oh, dude, I've got a story for you like that too. It was me and my girlfriend. We were hunting this little pine patch. Well, pine patch, of course, it has pine needles. It doesn't have leaves. Super quiet to walk on. 75 yards down was my buddy Scott, and across the ridge was this guy Ben who was hunting with us. And it was getting into, I'd say rifle season. So it's getting kind of chilly, and we set up facing each other so my girlfriend could look over my back and I could look over her back, because it's a planted pine patch we're in, so it's like rows, columns of them. And we were hunting on the ground, not in a blind. It's a very uneasy feeling walking in the dark, so I carried my 357 mag with me just in case something was there. She carried her 9mm with her. We're sitting there just getting daylight, beautiful morning, and it sounded like all hell broke loose on our right, my right. And she looks at me, I look at her, and I immediately look over. Well, I take my gun out of my holster and I set it on my lap, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, be on the safe side.
Because I don't know what's going on. I look at her, and she's struggling to get her gun, and it ran behind me. So she's struggling to get her gun out of her holster. And I was like, okay, whatever. Finally, the noise stops, and I'm sitting here just staring over my shoulder. And we're sitting there, and I was like, all right, my neck's kind of starting to hurt. I was like, my girlfriend's got my back. Yeah, she's gonna look over my shoulder for me. I look at her, and she's on her phone. And I look at her, and I said, what are you doing? She's like, well, it stopped. I was like, duh, we're in a pine patch. And I was like, you sending a Facebook update? Like, oh my God, Rain's about to get mauled by a bear right now.
How funny.
Turns out it was the guy who was across the ridge from us. He shot this little button buck with a bow. And of course, we didn't hear the shot go off. All we heard was the deer going Mach 3 beside us. But I was like, man.
Like it had a rocket shipped up its ass.
Dude, Mach 3.
I've seen a bear, like, if I've seen a bear from a tree stand, it's not that scary, you just be quiet, let the bear pass, Most time if a bear sees you, it's off running the other way.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be a part of the game.
Unless they have cubs, black bears don't want to be a part of the game. Scary feeling, I remember I've seen a black bear walking in the woods twice. One time I was hunting with my grandfather. First time I ever seen a black bear, like, in the wild, in person. Me and my grandpa was squirrel hunting. I think I had like a 22, and I think he had like a 20 gauge with number 3, like, bird shot, something that would just piss a bear off.
Low grass.
Yeah. But this crazy, loud, obnoxious running noise, and of course, my grandpa's like, all right, I could tell he's trying not to worry me. He's like, it's probably a bear. And I was like, oh, bear? I was like, what do you mean a bear? And then sure enough, this like 200, 300-pound black bear come bolting through like the woods by us, and I was like, what do we do? Grandpa's like, don't go that way. Exactly. I was like, that's all we do. We just go the other way.
And I've never seen a bear. Like I said, I've seen a bear in like Rocky Mount, and I've seen a couple crossing roads. I've never seen one in the woods. I've been lucky enough, but I have smelt them.
Oh, bears stink so bad.
If you want to imagine the dirtiest dog smell.
Greasy. It's like they sweat, I think, just ridiculously. It's like constant sweating fat man mixed with wet dog.
Yeah, that's exactly what it smells like. Because I've been in the woods and smelt that before. And I was like, what is it? And eventually it come across my mind, well, what is a bear besides a really big dog? Like, the same fur kind of concept. So that's what it smells like.
I don't think I've ever been, like, genuinely scared ever, like, in the woods. Because most of the time, I have a weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty knowledgeable in the woods of animals and stuff, and when to approach an animal, when not to. You never approach a bear unless you're stupid.
Yeah.
But I think the only time I've ever had, like, an eerie feeling was we were hunting one time, me and my buddy, like, remote, deep Callaway. And we were walking through the woods, and, like, there was bear, like, you could tell, like, a bear was denned nearby, I guess you could say, because, like, there was a lot of, like, bear shit, and we found a deer carcass, and I was like, it's kind of decent-sized bear living up through here, and we found a tree, and people don't know much about bears. I'm a little bit of a bear enthusiast myself, but bears will, like, scratch trees to, like, sharpen their claws and, like, break dead skin off, I guess, normal bear stuff.
Well, that too, and they get the bugs out of them too.
But there was this oak tree, and I'm like 6 foot. I could probably reach up to like 9 foot. Well, not 9, probably like 8.5 foot. I reached up on this tree, and I could not touch the star of these claw marks. Ooh. And I used to have a picture of it, actually. I was standing beside it with my arm up, and I could barely touch like the bottom of these claw marks. And I didn't think anything of it. And then, like, 5 minutes later, I was like, I'm 6'1". I can reach about 8 foot. I said, this bear is reaching about 10 foot. Yeah. I said, that's a big bear.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this bear gets after me. Black bears can run like 40 mile an hour easy.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how fast.
I was like, this thing's going to kill me. And then, then you're thinking, well, how fast can my buddy run?
We go back to that conversation.
He's pretty quick. And I was like, if I shoot him in the leg, they're going to find his body. Like, so me and him both were kind of looking at each other, and I was like, how's your legs feel?
I seen there was an article about a guy with a Walther P22 saved his life against a grizzly bear attack. When they were in the woods, he shot his brother-in-law in the knee when the bear come after him, and that's how it saved his life.
Like, I've seen some, like, there was that video while, like, last year at Park Ranger was attacked by the same grizzly bear twice because it mauled him, and then he played dead. And then when the bear ran away, they went down the same trail and ran into each other again. It mauled him again.
Bad luck. But all right, hang on.
But
is that bad luck or good luck? It's bad luck that he ran into the bear twice. Good luck that he lived.
Yeah, like,
I would still buy a lottery ticket.
And he said, like, the bear, he didn't think the bear was trying to kill him. It was just trying to, like, protect itself. But I was like, you figured a bear would have enough common sense, like, me big, you small, get away from me. Yeah. Like, what else can you do other than scream and run? Like,
yeah, and I mean, like you said, as fast as they're coming in at you.
Yeah, like, and then there's that guy in Alaska that was attacked by that black bear, and, like, he fended it off killed it with a Swiss Army knife, like, and he was like 70 years old, like slit its throat while it was mauling him.
Yeah, but that's a different breed of person.
Yeah, like,
live in Alaska.
I'm not that person if a grizzly bear, God forbid, if a average size house cat jumps at me, I'm like, oh shit, like swatting at it, like, exactly, get away from me. Yeah. Full-grown grizzly bear, I'm probably just gonna pass out in this game.
Oh yeah, that's game over, man.
I mean, let alone a black bear.
Definitely. But yeah, man, so I think we're going to end up wrapping it up right here. Definitely had a great time talking to you, man.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you bringing me on the podcast.
Hey, no problem, dude. Definitely get you back on again. Maybe we'll have some fishing adventures or something to talk about in the summertime.
Oh, for sure. We'll have to go out and catch a brown trout this winter.
Oh,
we'll have to do that.
That sounds tempting. But alrighty, guys, we're gonna jump on off here, and y'all have a wonderful day.